You over to Paul French, who's going to be chairing this evening's conversation. Paul is an author, an analyst, and a commentator, amongst other things. Before I do that, if I can just quickly ask you to switch your phones to silent. And when it comes to questions, if you can wait for the microphone, I'll be ringing round because we are broadcasting live on our YouTube channel. And the video will be available to watch afterwards as well if you want to catch up with it. So over to Paul.
Thank you, Millicent. Hyeonseo Lee's book is actually published officially today, so it's Happy Pub Day to you, finally. It's only been in the UK a couple of days doing some events. It's really great to be able to come and ask her some questions and listen to her talk, because I do quite a lot of these events around North Korea. And invariably, most of the people that we speak to tend to come from the political elite of Pyongyang. And that's always very interesting because, of course, as North Korea watchers, as Pyongyang watchers, we're trying to find out, of course, what's going on or what might be going on in the leadership and the higher echelons of the DPRK. What's interesting, I think, about The Girl with Seven Names particularly is that Hyeonseo is not from the Pyongyang elite. She is not from Pyongyang, which is rare enough in itself among most of the books written. And her route out of North Korea, her reasons for leaving, the circumstances of leaving are very different to many of the other experiences that we've had. And in this book, she really gives us some very interesting insights into North Korea, things that we may have heard as tittle-tattle before, but have never verified, small details of ordinary life in North Korea and ordinary folk in North Korea surviving in that system as it is at the moment, and how they maybe choose to leave, and then how that process works. So I think that in a sense, Hyeonseo's memoir is really an extraordinary memoir, because the ordinary memoirs that we get from North Korea tend to be about the high elite. This is more of an ordinary person who's been through a system, and an incredible lot, given that you're still incredibly young. To have managed to do all of these things, terrible things and great things, is sort of quite amazing. So what we were thinking we would do is, basically, Hyeonseo's memoir is 300 or so pages. 100, very cleverly, you've made 100 or so pages about life in North Korea and memories of living in North Korea. 100 pages about being an illegal North Korean in China and the problems of surviving that way, and then 100 pages really on moving out, eventually getting to South Korea, managing to bring your family with you, and your life since then. So that gives us 3 nice sections to talk about. And first of all, Hyeonseo obviously is going to introduce herself and her book and her experiences herself. Then we'll ask a few questions, and then there's a lot of opportunity for you to ask questions. So, please.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for coming for my event. And it's an honor to be here. It still feels strange to say this, but today I published my book, about my life. I could have never imagined that it would happen, but here I am. When I look back on my life, I sometimes wondered how I endured certain situations and difficult periods. It has been such an incredible journey, and living in China, I was hunted by the Chinese authorities simply because I was a North Korean defector. And I was even caught by the Chinese police, and I was narrowly avoided being repatriated to North Korea by convincing them that I was actually a Chinese citizen. So due to all the dangers and surrounding me, that I had to change my name constantly to protect my identity. So I became The Girl with 7 Names, which is the title of my book. I had to overcome so many obstacles during that journey. And I was because of all the journey, my life was like a roller coaster, and I was able to deal with the stress and all the hardships. But one thing I could never handle was being separated from my family. when I was living in North Korea, I received a lot of gifts from my parents, but I was too young. At that time, I didn't thank to my parents. Instead of thank to them, I thanked to the dictators posing as the leaders. But when I was living in China, I realized that I should have cooked for them or given them a gift. But when I realized that, by the time it was too late. So it made me so guilty. And since then, I never celebrate my birthday as a punishment to myself. And I hated birthday, and even I didn't celebrate holidays myself. So those times were so painful to me, and I still can't celebrate my birthday. Nobody should ever have to be separated from the ones they love. But most people around the world might take their time with family members and friends for granted. But as a North Korean defector, we are painfully aware of how precious that time is together. Because many defectors, and most defectors, are separated from their family members forever. So this is an ongoing tragedy that we must end. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. And so I want to start by going back to your early life in North Korea. Your parents are somewhat different, really, I think, to the sort of parents we've been introduced to from North Korea before, from other people. For a start, you grew up in Hyeesoo, which is up on the Yalu River, right on the border with China. And I think people don't always understand that it's reasonably easy to cross that border, right? I mean, there are, of course, punishments for doing so, but it physically is not that difficult to move across to China and North Korea. So that town is a long way from Pyongyang, if you like. And it is a town where a lot of trade goes across from China to North Korea. Most of it illegal, of course, but people do this in order to survive and in order to bring in consumer goods and also products from China, which are, of course, amazing to many Koreans, but particularly films and things like that. And, of course, even from South Korea. And this has grown over many years. And your mother and father, really, but your mother particularly, were involved in this trade across the border. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about Hyeesoo and growing up there and what sort of town it really is, because it's very different from most North Korean towns.
I was born in there, but also, as you can see in my book, I moved a lot of places inside North Korea because of my father's job. So, yeah, in many different places in North Korea. So later, I don't know, when I was at the end of elementary school, I came back to my hometown again. And then, because living in China, I mean, the border area, it's a kind of, I feel lucky. Later, I realized that it was lucky because at least North Korea is such a cut off from the outside world, so we have no chance to compare with the other country. But by living there, that was the only country we can compare with my own, and so I grew up there, and in the past I realized actually Chinese life worse than us, like 1980s I could feel, but over the time through early 1990s I can feel something different. It's becoming better than us. And even before Kim Il-sung died, we had a serious power shortage. It already started, but while we don't have lights at night, but through the border, which is only 10 meters away from me, I can see there's a brilliant street lights and neon signs. So everything is changing to me, and that's why. And then the North Korean people, I mean, living in Hyesan people has a lot of money. Maybe after Pyongyang, it's really considered that they have money because of the reason is near the border area, and that either they do smuggling, illegal business, or either there's a Chinese trading companies there. That's why Hyesan people more easy to access the outside products like China. That's why if we ask the famine in North Korea, if we started the famine in North Korea, so if you ask Hamgyong North Province people, they're saying like it even started before 1994, before Kim Il-sung died. But if you ask people in Hyesan, the answer was all different. They said the famine started 1997 or 1998. So because even within North Korea, we can't share the information freely. I mean, it's not easy. That's why even Yangon province, my Hyesan city people, they don't know there's another big famine. I mean, January, they don't know, something like that. So the famine in Hyesan started latest.
Hyesan was lucky because
Yeah.
it was able to trade and
That's
get
why,
goods that it could
because of
sell
the
for
location.
food. Whereas, but during that time, you did travel around the country.
But also,
so you saw the extent of the famine in Hamhong and other cities.
But Hyesan is also the birth town of Kim Jong-il, which is fake. But that's why the government's always trying to brainwash or do more propaganda for our area, because we share information with China. So like Kim Jong-il, they try hard to control people in Hyesan, but it wasn't easy because Hyesan people, like not all the people but youth, they are more often open that to the outside. So there's one time Kim Jong-il even gave a words, we can make a unification without Hyesan youth, which is he was really angry for that. So this is a Hyesan. So yeah, people view loyalty to the government on the surface somehow, but still, yeah, it's a little bit slightly different or Hyesan people's mind compared to the other
And
cities.
I think as well, when we think of North Korea and visit and are able to, we think of it as very closed down, and yet your mother, very enterprising woman, was usually able to sort of bribe her way out of any problems, right?
Yeah, always.
You know, so what you also show is a level of clampdown, of very heavy government persecution, but underneath that, ordinary policemen, ordinary soldiers along the border, seemingly quite willing to take bribes, and so a system of trade and barter seems to be able to operate in this way. And I think that this is something that we haven't really had in books before, because most of those people in Pyongyang, that's not how they do business, right? But in the places where you were, that really seems to have happened. So that ability, and also crime. Of course, the North Korean government will say there's no crime in North Korea and so on. But at various points in North Korea, and then in China with North Koreans, a lot of crime, you know, problems with theft, stealing, and things like that. This again is something. You saw a lot of that, right? You see that as an everyday thing. In
North Korea, yeah. I mean, to survive in North Korea, I mean, even though it seems North Korean government controlled everything, which is true, but it's also, I mean, we are communism. That's why there's a bribes works very well. Since we have social hierarchy, so who has power? I mean, the bribes works very well. With the bribe, even you can buy passport. I mean, while other North Korean people in their life never have a chance to see those passports. But these days it's possible to buy passport even with the money. And but we have a lot of criminals inside North Korea, which is so dangerous, especially like military. If you go to military, the first thing you need to learn is how to steal the things from the villages. It's really serious. They're stealing everything as they can. But I mean, the first thing they do, they're learning from the military is how to steal. But they don't want to stealing those things, but they have to because the official ordered them to let them steal. Otherwise, they can't serve very well among the military people together. So yeah. But one time I remember that my mom, when I was living in China, she called me. I mean, in my book you can see I had phone call with my family from early 2000 from China, and then my mom told me, actually today we had one thief in our house, and we saw there was a young military man who was really thin, you know, seems almost going to faint, but he took our TV at the time, and my mom just. So I said, what did you do, you guys, for him? And then my mom said, this seems like my son, you know, I don't want to punishment or give something physical abuse. So she said, just I gave him money and then let him go back, you know. So I said, yeah, you really did a good job. I mean, in North Korea, we have a lot of murders, but whenever I see CIA movies or the dramas, I mean, they easily find those criminals, but in North Korea, it's not easy to find. Not easy to find those criminals. So yeah, it's just so collapsed country.
The other thing that I found fascinating, which is one of those things that people talk about a little bit, and we have an idea of it, which you talk about a lot in your book, so I found this fascinating because I'd always thought it happened, but you couldn't really find enough people to say it. Is just the role in this, you know, in a country that would deny that, of course, is an atheist country and a country that is against superstition, just the level of superstition. And I'm not talking about religion as such, but, you know, I mean, your mother takes you several times to see a fortune teller, yeah, to try and work out everything from whether or not this boy will be a good marriage or a bad marriage to, if you're going to leave the country, what day should you go on? What would be an auspicious day to become a defector, right? Which I think that's a very good service for fortune tellers to offer, I think. I don't know if they do that. You also mentioned having to wait at a fortune teller's once while a senior official of the Communist Party left in a Mercedes, and they'd obviously been to check their lucky date to see the leadership. And just the idea of superstition as being very much a part of everybody's life around everything. And I think that again is not something that we've heard but always thought about.
What I realized in the outside, many people think in North Korea it's not allowed for a fortune teller because North Korea, we don't have a religious. I mean, the Kim Il-sung, Kim Jong-il is our God, right? So maybe that's why it's hard for them to believe that North Koreans are seriously believing in superstition. But it is. But, even though the fortune tellers are illegal in North Korea, and some of them, not often, but some of them can be really in public executions, as an example. But as a North Korean people, I think people just have no way to rely on, I think. So that they are really severely rely on the fortune teller. That's why that system, everywhere we have a fortune teller, and then that's why, as you can see in my book, I went to see fortune teller even a few months ago in South Korea. So because I take that as advice, but when my mom doing that business with the illegal smuggling with China, she strongly believed that. And then sometimes it's so mysterious, it works seriously. And then, as I said in my book, that a fortune teller said one time, wow, your future, you will be, living in foreign country. You will eat the foreign country rice. And then my future will be, I will be a musician. So second thing, the musician, maybe it's understandable because I was doing that way at the time. So, then maybe it makes sense. But the other way, I'm eating foreign rice. That doesn't make sense at all. And then my mom and I was thinking maybe that means you are living further away from Hyesan. Between North Korea, maybe the other side of Hyesan, maybe could be Pyongyang, whatever. Yeah. That's we just interpret it like that. We never thought it was meant really outside of North Korea. But yeah, look, I am here right now. So it means the fortune teller was really right. And then, even in common in North Korea, Kim Jong-il, even he hates fortune tellers, but whenever he goes to visiting the countryside of North Korea, he's always taking with the famous fortune teller, what we heard. I didn't see that, but what we heard. But once some people make fun of that, the reason North Korea regime collapsed or somehow didn't work very well, because he believed the fortune teller too much. Yeah, we have that kind of joke.
I'm kind of fascinated that you talk a lot about your education and going to school, and of course we know that that the official story of, say, Kim Jong-il's birth is that the new star came into the sky and the glacier cracked and the birds flew and Mount Koryo, flowers bloomed that had never bloomed before and things. All of these things are quite fantastical and very superstitious. When a new leader is born, all of these things happen, you know, stars and glaciers and everything. And the state expects you to believe that. And yet, if you then follow any superstition, the state says, no, you shouldn't believe that. Yet the state has given you very sort of superstitious beliefs at first. And all of the education system follows that way, right?
Yeah. Sorry, what was it?
Well, okay.
Yeah.
I was just trying to make a point that, you know, of my own devising, that the state asks you to believe ridiculous things, right? But then doesn't like the idea that you go to fortune tellers. But I'm taking the position that a fortune teller may not actually be able to tell your fortune.
But yeah, I mean, right now, when I'm thinking back my life in North Korea, it's just how I was stupid to believe everything what the regime says. Actually, some people even I saw on the internet, you know, North Koreans, they don't have brain. How can they believe even such ridiculous things, you know? But if you grow up in the country, from the moment you were born, if you're brainwashed severely like that, you have to believe. I mean, even though that's lie, I mean, we didn't know that's lie, but even though that's lie, if you hear every day, every single minute, it becomes the truth. You accept as the truth, like that. So, yeah, as I said in my book, maybe, I mean, I didn't, until when I was 14, I thought Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il, they don't go to the bathroom like humans, and they don't drink alcohol, and they don't have smoke, which I believed. And then even they killed the enemies when they're 5 to 6 years old. I mean, right now I was just thinking how they can kill one big human being when they're 5 or 6, or how can they drive, or how can they riding horse when they're 5. It's so ridiculous things, but we just believed it because we didn't consider them as a normal human being. We believed them as a God, so God can do everything, right? But not only I believed that. Actually, when I was living in South Korea, I was thinking how I believed that such ridiculous things. Maybe because I was too young, too naive. But actually, Mr. Jang Jin-sung, I saw one time his interview on South Korean TV, and then what he said during the interview, until I met Kim Jong-il in person, until I was shaking with his hand, I thought he was God. So at the time, oh my God, even the adults who was living in Pyongyang, he believed the same way as me. So why not? I mean, totally it makes sense to me, you know. So yeah, that's the reality in North Korea. But when I was 14, during the Kim Il-sung funeral, I realized, I mean, how God could die, you know, but he died at the time. So it's sort of, I realized maybe he's the same human being like us. Yeah, so slowly I awakened from that.
The death of Kim Il-sung in 1994 is a very interesting one that you mentioned it, because one of the things in this book, which is another question that those of us who've spent a lot of time wondering, trying to get into North Korea, looking at North Korea, always wonder about, and of course people see on television, is the mass crying when a leader dies, and everybody crying and wailing and everything. And of course we always sit there thinking, well, you know, is it real? Is it made up? Whatever. And you talk very much about the different sorts of crying that you have to do when something awful happens.
I mean, during the funeral, I mean, 1994, there's many people cried severely. I'm not talking about their crying. They really cried with their heart, because many North Korean people considered Kim Il-sung as a hero than Kim Jong-il, because they still believe that North Korea had a good time than South Korea, maybe during 1960s or 70s, which I never experienced the period. But that's why they just respect Kim Il-sung more than Kim Jong-il. That's why they cried really sincerely. And during the funeral period, it was so hot. And then we were standing there over hours under the son, it's really exhausting. And then, so I was sad, but in the end, I feel too tired. And then, but once I didn't feel crying at the time, but while all the people crying, suddenly I felt like nobody told me at the time, if you don't cry, you're sent back to prison camp. Nobody told me, never. But somehow, I think it's as a North Korean, we learned the fear instinctively, I guess, inside. So, oh my God, if I don't cry, maybe I will have a huge problem. So what I did is I was faking crying. I just really did. And then I did it too seriously, and then my teacher thought I was crying too severely, and so she put me inside the ambulance because there's an ambulance was standing by. There's some people really fainted in reality.
Well,
so
you actually say, and I'm going to read this because it is fascinating. You say this is at school. Kim Il-sung has died. The great leader has died. So from all around me came the sounds of sniffing, sobbing, and wailing. So all the other kids. It looked as if everyone was beside themselves with grief. My survival instinct kicked in. If I didn't cry like everyone else, I'd be in trouble. So I rubbed my face in forced distress, surreptitiously spat on my fingertips, and dabbed my eyes. I made a gasping noise that I hoped sounded like I was heaving with despair. After a long time doing this, I felt I could not stand there for much longer. The sun was now overhead. It was very warm. So I stumbled a little. The teachers thought I was about to faint, so they put me in an ambulance that was there on standby, and then said, that was a relief. So, I mean, you know, on one level, that sounds like me trying to get out of games at school, right? You know, by kind of pretending to be unwell and things, you know. I can't play football. So. But it's very serious, because you talk about afterwards, there were self-criticism sessions at the school, and in a sense, it's what we would call a catch-22. You can't win. Because some people are criticised for not crying, right? And then another girl is criticised for faking her cry, which was you faked yours as well, right? She got accused of faking her tears, and people got accused of overdoing it. Right? So it's like you can't win. Right? You know, and you know we still see this all the time when Kim Jong-il died and at various other points.
I mean, they're at least the students, so their parents. Maybe they had problem. Students, they don't put them in a prison, but in reality, some adults had problem with the issue. Maybe they're faking or they didn't cry. At the time, it was really serious. They had the problem, and then the funeral went quite wrong. I mean, a few months, and then we banned drinking inside North Korea. I mean, North Korean men only relies on drink and smoke. There's no way to, you know, enjoy by themselves. So some people. They had drink, and then they were caught. Because of that, some people really sent to prison. It is really serious. And then, as you said, when some student was publicly criticized on the school ground by not crying or faking, so I felt, wow, I'm pretty smart. That actually I learned to myself, and then I avoided that problem. Yeah.
And around, I mean, we won't. The surveillance system that you're under, and of course the people that are looking for the people that aren't crying are the really neighbourhood committee people. I mean, you know, it's not necessarily some super secret police. It's people in the community, and they're accusing people of not crying enough or faking their tears, and also looking all the time and surveillance all the time. So when you're thinking of leaving, when you're thinking of going, you have to deal with this level of surveillance, but and you talk about it in great detail. How you know that this is not the sort of thing we might imagine in the old Eastern Bloc or something with spies on the corners. I mean, this is just people, old ladies or your next door neighbour. It's everyone's watching everyone. Children in schools. You tell a story of someone who when a teacher, of course, where you were, there was lots of South Korean films coming in, and one of the teachers asked the class, "What's your favourite movie?" And without thinking, the kid shouted the name of a South Korean film, at which point, of course, you know, her parents are taken away and everything. She's given away that they've got South Korean films in their thing, which is funny, but it's not funny, right? You know, it's but I wonder, you talk about it very much here, obviously writing after you've left and lived elsewhere, but at the time, you know, when you were in North Korea as a young person, what did you think of it then? Did it just seem normal? Or did you realize that this was an extremely odd way for people to operate?
No, I thought that was a very normal as a human being. I thought other countries are more problem than us. I mean, I didn't know there was problem. It was a very normal as a human being, and because there's no country we can compare, and yeah, we have many spies watching everyone. If the neighbor can be spy us, and then yeah, informants paid by the government, and that's why still I remember that my mom told me many times, even when I was young, be careful what you are saying. When you are outside, don't repeat what you hear at home. The words have ears and the fears have eyes. So I think this is not only what my mom told me. I think many family members they told to their children. So what I remember was my mom and my father, they didn't talk too much about political things, you know, in front of us. Maybe we can make a mistake by repeating that in the outside. And then especially after I left the country, my family had a serious problem with that. My mom even told me many times over the phone, I'm so stressed. My mom is so sensitive woman, and she said, I'm living here so stressed. Whenever I go out, all the neighbors are like watching me where I go. It's so, I mean, maybe just their neighbor, maybe you have to maybe sensitive on that. But my mom said, no, I feel they are really watching me. And then one day she left her company that she worked for a long time. The reason was she considered that was her best friend in the company. But after 6 years later, she told my mom that she said, actually, I want to confess something to you that over the years, I've been spying on you. I mean, I was reporting to the government every day about you, where you went today, who you met today, something, everything she did continuously for 6 years. And then she said, I know you are a really nice woman. It's not a good thing to do for you. So she feels sick. That's what she told to my mom, the reality. And even the company, they put the spies on my mom. So my mom feels really tired of that. That's why she left the company. But it's not only my parents' experience, that's everyone's experience in North Korea.
Okay, so you decided to go and have a look at China. Your younger brother had been going across the river backwards and forwards as young boys would do in a place like that. You decided to go across and ended up staying for various reasons. And I think it's worth talking a little bit about the problems of being an illegal North Korean in China. Now, we should say again that your story is extraordinary compared to most North Koreans that cross into China, because for various reasons your father had encouraged you to study Mandarin, Chinese, right? And so you had a knowledge of Chinese characters and could speak Chinese as well. Well,
only writing.
The writing. But that gave you somewhat of an advantage when you were there over other people, I mean, which came useful. But I wonder if you could talk about some of the problems of, you know, you ended up particularly in Shenyang, where a lot of stuff happened to you, where there are a lot of North Koreans, and it's straight up Korean,
Defectors.
Chinese, and defectors as well. I mean, it is around Yangbian, and people move up there. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about your time there in Shenyang and some of the problems that you came across that really threatened to be sent back or to be arrested in China.
Well, it's a really long story. I need to make short, but. I thought, the reason I left North Korea was I didn't mean to completely escape the country. I was so curious about the outside world, so I just wanted to find out the answer, and then I meant to go back to North Korea, but I didn't know. I couldn't have never guessed that was the last minute for me when I crossed the border. And then living in China, the bright new world is not mine. It's not for me. It's not for defectors, I found. Suddenly I became orphan there. My life in North Korea was okay. And then suddenly in China, I have to feed myself. I need to earn money. I have to survive myself. So it was really hard. But the most difficult was in China, because the North Korean defectors always hunted by the government. And one time I was caught by the Chinese police. I didn't know why I was caught, but I was caught by the security police. detective police, I guess, and then and then somebody reported me. Later, I realized, and then because they asked me my name. Are you someone? They asked me at the time. My name was different, not Hyeonseo. So I said yes. I could be saying no, but I didn't know they were policemen. But I just honestly I said yes, and then that's why they called me. And then I was taken to the police station, and then I saw Sita police station. I don't know if you know there.
Which is actually in the Korea town, the Korean enclave of Shenyang.
When I went to the first floor, I saw there's a prison cell. It's a temporary prison cell, I guess, and then there's a lot of defectors were contained in there. And then I feel like I will be there soon. I will join there soon. I mean, they have a really dark face, and then my fate is exactly the same as them. And then they took me to the second floor, which it wasn't interrogation room. It was a conference room, what I realized. And then a lot of Chinese policemen was standing, leaning the wall. And then the 3 main officers was sitting in front of the table, and then they were interrogating me for a long time. But as you said about the Chinese character, living in North Korea, the most curriculum we focus on is about the dictators, activism or history. We have to learn that severely. We not focus on mathematics or English or other curriculum that much. But I somehow feel, my father told me many times, you have to learn foreign languages, but I didn't know, I don't know what can I use in the future for that. But somehow I really liked writing Chinese character because we don't have that, so it looks really amazing. So I got the scores almost the top in my whole school, which it helped me in many years later when I was settling in China. So when I was caught, it was after 3 years living in China, and they tested my Chinese language abilities, and including writing Chinese and including reading the papers. So that's why they just couldn't believe that I was a North Korean defector, because China has a huge population, and still there's many people they don't know how to read even. So that's why they thought I'm a Chinese citizen, and then that report was false, fake. That's why they let me go. Yeah. So after that, I had a strong protective mind myself. I shouldn't have too close with other people. I shouldn't believe anybody in my life. Always, so I made a white lie for myself. That's why I changed my name constantly whenever I moved to the cities. Yeah, it's sad.
The Chinese police are one thing to worry about, and around the time that you were in China, there was in the run-up to the Olympics, there was the problems with North Korean refugees trying to get into various embassies and even into international schools and things, both in Shenyang, but most publicly in Beijing around that, and the Chinese stopping that. So the Chinese police were one problem, but on the other side, there was people traffickers who promise all sorts of things in terms of getting you to South Korea or getting you legalized in China. And you can't know whether to trust those as well. And sometimes those were Chinese and sometimes those were Koreans in China as well, right? And you came across those trafficking groups as well.
Oh no, I didn't come from the trafficking
No,
groups.
but you met people who were able to promise passports and things like that.
Right.
And the interesting thing, I think, is not that there are people offering you different ways through Mongolia or down through Vietnam or wherever, but that you as a North Korean defector, but you haven't been able to defect, you're just illegal at this point. Can you trust these people? You know, you're put on the phone to people, you don't know who you're talking to, they're asking for lots of money. You know, it's a terrible situation to be in with people offering you the way to get to South Korea, but you can't trust them. They may just take your money and go. Right?
That's why, as you can see, I experienced a lot. I mean, I became victim in many ways because if I don't trust, I can't do anything. I mean, illegal things, like buy Chinese ID cards, in terms of many things. I mean, I have to work for them, even though I know that's illegal things to do. Maybe they are not work for me, maybe they were taking money away, which it happened several times, but I have to do that. I have no choice, otherwise no source can connect. But yeah, try several times, and then I lost the money several times, but in the end, it happens. There's among the bad people, there's most bad people, but some people is really honest. But in the end, what I realized, if I tell them I'm North Korean defector, they are not doing honestly for doing anything. I mean, they're taking money and then just, for example, I will make ID cards for you, but taking money and then they don't. And then I will bring you to South Korea if you pay this much money, and I paid, and then they disappeared. It's really common things.
Or even saying that they can put you on a mobile phone with your mother, who's still in North Korea. You've not been able to talk to her. You've been away for quite some years. You've lost your North Korean accent, because that's a survival technique as well, right? Because obviously the Chinese police can tell North Korean accents from the south and Chinese Korean accents. And so when you do get on the phone, you kind of have to ask each other questions to make sure that you're not being cheated and they haven't just put some old woman on the phone pretending to be your mother. And she's not sure if you're really her daughter, because they could be putting someone else on the other end of the line.
When I have first phone call with my mom in my life, because in North Korea we don't have a phone system inside the home until 2004, North Korea finally adopted the home phone system, but until then we didn't have. So certainly my period we didn't have. And then I started having phone call with my parents, my mom, from early 2000. And the first moment when I'm talking to her, the voice I never heard, but I mean, it's just so, to me, it's not familiar. My mom said exactly, my mom feels, maybe it's not my daughter, so there's no way to verify whether it is really happening, because those other defectors had a serious problem. They said after they sent money, they said, "Oh, we'll bring your family over the phone," but they brought a fake, different person, but they believed that. That's why I heard about those kind of things. So I kind of tested my mom. I said, "When did I leave North Korea?" And then my mom said, "What year, what day, what time?" She just mentioned every details, and then she said, "How can I, forget about the moment in my life?" And then that's only my mom know about that. I never talked about
Similarly
anything.
with your brother, who when you left was, 7 or something?
Yeah.
And so, of course, has changed physically a lot by the time you saw him next.
But I met my brother early 2000, one time, very briefly, between 5 minutes, near the border area. I went there from Shanghai, and then I just met him. But we were standing each other like this kind of distance, but I couldn't believe that was my brother, because in my memory, always I thought he was a really younger boy. So when I was living in China, there's many beggars. There's some student beggars on the street. If someone looked like my brother's height, I always giving them money, because it reminds me my brother all the time. Maybe my brother escaped to North Korea. Maybe he's asking for money. Maybe he could be my brother. So that's why I just always, have a sympathy for them. But when I see my brother in person a few years later, he's just grown up, and then he became adult. It's, to me, not familiar. And then my brother said the same way. We were just staring at each other. We didn't talk to each other. And then he finally said, "Nuna." Nuna means sister, one word. And then I can feel the voice. It's him, Yeah, but as you can read, it's a tragedy that I couldn't even talk to my brother, because all the way I brought bread, food from Shenyang to give my brother at the time. But because of unexpected, the Chinese gang, they attacked the house. So I was taken to them, with them. So it was a very first moment to see my brother, but it was a last minute to see my brother until 2009. Yeah.
So eventually you got to South Korea. Again, it's an extraordinary story in the sense that it's not the typical defector refugee story. I mean, when you get, after spending some time in Shanghai after Shenyang, you get there, South Korean immigration, National Intelligence Service doesn't really believe you. You don't sound, by this point you don't sound like a North Korean, you don't look like a North Korean, in the sense that many people who've come straight from North Korea would probably have darker skin and everything, where they've been outside and not had sunblock and things. I mean, that's a very identifiable thing that the Chinese police have used a lot. They don't believe you because they've never really thought of an ordinary North Korean, apart from a political defector. But they've never seen an ordinary North Korean turn up from China with a real Samsonite suitcase. Right? 'Cause who buys a real Samsonite suitcase in China, right? Where there's fakes on every corner. No one's ever done that. So they don't believe you, right? You know, you've got genuine products. You've got, you know, not you don't look like, but you do convince them, and then you do get into South. You of course have the right to be in South Korea, but you title this section about South Korea "The Journey into Darkness," and I think that's very interesting because I think often we think of a North Korean defector, refugee, that getting to Seoul, getting to South Korea as the end of the journey. It's like if we did the Hollywood movie of it, you know, it would be as you walked out of Incheon airport and got the taxi into Seoul and the 1,000,001 cars and bright lights, all the things that North Koreans always say, you know, amaze them when they first get there. That would be the end of the film, right? But of course, that's not the end of the story for most North Koreans that go there, and it's often not a happy ending for North Koreans that go there. And I think you've been involved in some of that, but people are not really equipped to deal with South Korean life. They're not really educated to deal with South Korean life.
Actually, you know, as a North Korean defector, I was always in danger of being repatriated to North Korea from China. So I was try hard to not being repatriated to North Korea. But when I arrived in South Korea, it's shocking to me. I had to worry about another repatriation to China because there's no way to convince that I was actually a North Korean citizen. So South Korean government, the National Intelligence Service, they didn't believe me as a North Korean defector because I brought perfect document with visa to come to South Korea. So I seek asylum at the Incheon airport. So while all defectors coming through Thailand or Mongolia, Cambodia, so it's a really different experience. That's why they, even as you said, the NIS, the agent's woman, she looked at me with very not nice, kind eyes, and she said, "Oh, you even have a Samsonite. You have a real Samsonite suitcase." So I didn't know what was Samsonite until then. But a few years later, I realized why she was, her attitude was like that. But yeah, but living in South Korea is very. I mean, I thought if I come to South Korea, the South Korean government will welcome us since we've been separated for so long. So, but when I arrived in South Korea, I realized actually we are forgotten human being from South Korea for a long time. And then the sad thing is actually many North Koreans, they took their life to come to South Korea through China. I mean, they repatriated several times to North Korea, and they even endured all horrible tortures from the regime, but in the end they made up to, I mean, only small percent of people made up to come to South Korea. But when they after arrived in South Korea, they are suicide. I mean, the suicide rate pretty high compared to the South Korean population. So it's really made me shocking and sad for that. Like, but I genuinely I can understand as a North Korean defector, but later, I was trying to understand why we are outside in South Korea. I mean, we are foreigners. What I realized, I became foreigners than any foreigners in South Korea. It's really sad. I mean, why are South Koreans are really, you know, treat well to the Westerners or, you know, but not North Koreans. But later, because of we've been separated for so long, and then during that time, culture and lifestyle, even languages have become different. And I think South Korean people completely forgot about us, but it's over time, it's a change. I came to South Korea 2008, but right now, the South Korean people's mind is a little bit opening towards North Korean defectors because of many North Korean defectors activists in domestic, because they're willing to tell their heartbreaking stories, all the experiences. So many South Koreans also crying with us. So I mean, I'm pretty optimism about that. And then if we have more time, I firmly believe we can close the gap. Yeah.
So I want to ask you one last question before people get to ask. You have something here that you write, and you put it in italics, which means it must be important. And it's a big question, and I'm not sure you actually answer it. And there's no reason why you should answer it, because it's a very big question. But you say, well, look, you wrote it. Am I North Korean? That's where I was born and raised. Or am I Chinese? I became an adult there, didn't I? Or am I South Korean? I have the same blood as people here, the same ethnicity, but how does my South Korean identity make me my South Korean ID, just a card, make me South Korean? People here treat North Koreans as servants, as inferiors, and you say slightly before something which I think quite contentious, because both North and South in their different ways would always talk of unification as being the ideal thing, and one people, one Korea, and everything. But you say, because of language and the very little exchange that has occurred over that time, that we North and South Koreans, are no longer the same people. That there is that big gulf. But I wonder, am I North Korean, am I Chinese, am I South Korean? I mean, do you have any answer to that, or is that still a confusing question for you?
I mean, it was 2008, the year I seek asylum to South Korea. There was 2008, there was a Beijing Olympics. And I saw the game in South Korea with some South Korean friends together. And then South Korean friends are there chant, like 대한민국 or 우리나라. It's just that this. But among them, I was cheering the South Korean soccer team. But one time, immediately I realized I can't say this is my country. Like when other South Koreans chant as my country, but I couldn't say that out. I really wanted to say, but I couldn't spill the words out. And then at the time I realized, who am I, I mean, I was born in North Korea, but yeah, I'm not North Korean citizen at all. But I'm not certainly Chinese, but I lived 10 years with ID cards. So sort of, that's kind of part of my second hometown, even though there's many bad memories, but still I have a feeling about the country. And then South Korea, which I arrived soon, we have same blood. I'm South Korean citizen completely, but I don't think I belong to this society at all. I was completely outsider. That's why I was really confusing at the time. Who am I and where I have to live in the future? Just I don't know where will be the last destination. Maybe it will be more easy to go back to Shanghai again. I was even think about that, but still I have the problem. But I don't trying to think about that too much, which is I don't think that's really important. But I'm thinking I'm just Korean, and I believe we can become one in the future. So yeah, I mean, I'm North Korean. I was born in there. So when people ask me, where are you from? I said, I'm North Korean. Yeah.
Okay. I'm sure you have lots of questions. This book has, as you can see, I went through quite a lot of W.H. Smith's Post-it notes. Does anyone have any questions? There's a lady here. Let's wait for the microphone so people can hear you on.
I'm from China, and thank you very much for sharing your story. Actually, in China, a lot of information about North Korea are censored. So if I'm not in London, I can't get this kind of so many stories about you. Thank you first. And I'm more curious about your time in China. So I want to ask you, how was your life in China? Did you just work, or did you get any kind of education? And did you ever find some Chinese you can ever trust? Thanks.
Yeah, the very first thing I realized in China, to survive this country, I have to learn the language, which is a very difficult language, I guess, in this world. But I have to learn that. So 2 years, I did really my best to learning Chinese with myself. I never went to any school in China. And then I taught myself, I started with the cartoon books. And then later, I worked as a waitress in restaurants, which is a very low job I started with, because there's no way I can work in China. And I feel still, I got the first salary from restaurant. In North Korea, we don't have that kind of system. We don't have, workers paid by, owners, since we have a different communist regime. So even though the salary was very tiny, but it was so fascinating to me. I learned myself in my life for the first time, not only from my parents. Yeah, so that was a really good experience. And then through that time, I actually learned a lot of Chinese. So actually, I still remember one time, when I first moment to work in the restaurant, the customer asked in Chinese, 香烟. 香烟 means cigarette in Chinese, but I understood that's like a gum. Gum means, I don't know in English what's gum.
Chewing
but
gum.
Yeah. It's a 香藤. Yeah, 口香藤 is the pronunciation is really similar. So I was confusing. Is that cigarette or that? I just brought him the gum to him, and then he was furious. I mean, I didn't ask this. I asked the cigarette. Are you a North Korean defector? Immediately he said that. I was really shocking. So yeah, through that kind of experience, I learned more. But hard for me to trust the people. Right now, I want to trust people. I mean, still, even right now, it's having a hard time to trust people. I have to be careful spies right now. I have to be careful different people right now. But in the past, living in China, I mean, because I had Chinese friends, and then I told them I was from North Korea, and then some of them, among them, who told to the police station, reported me. So still, I don't know who was that. So through that experience, I just completely protect myself. So actually, I've been having friends for many years in China. They're Korean Chinese, and then one time she said, "Oh, Hyeonseo, you are not orphan, right? But I never heard throughout years that you were mentioning about your parents at all." It's just asking me about that. I was really stunned at the time, like that. And then I had a actual roommate in Shanghai for a long time, but she didn't know I was a defector. She thought I was a Korean Chinese, but these days there's a lot of SNS, Facebook, and Kakao Talk. You know, after I came here, like 2013, she realized that she's still living in Shanghai, but we've been separated for so long. After I came here, I came to South Korea through SNS. She sent me text. She said, "Oh my God, I didn't know you were North Korean defector. I saw your TED Talk." So, I really didn't want to let her see that my TED. I feel a little bit embarrassed. And then she said, "You can understand me, right?" And then she said, "Yeah." She said, "But yeah." So yeah.
But in Shanghai as well, interestingly, you also came into contact with the Korean community there in Koreatown at Longpai or Minhang, that area. And there, of course, they have several North Korean restaurants.
Yeah, run by the government.
Run by the Pyongyang government for what they call the dollars for Kim, so the money goes back. But the waitresses are from North Korea, the management is from North Korea, and so on. And lots of people go there. South Koreans go there because, of course, the Pyongyang cold noodle and everything. You know, you just really can't get that as well in South Korea. And you went to those restaurants as well.
Times.
But did you interact there with the North Koreans that were working there, and did they know that you were North Korean?
No. That's spy place. This is a really
because the Bolwibu, the internal security worked through those as well.
Whenever I go to a restaurant, I can see from Pyongyang some higher-ranked people, they are eating there. And then when they're leaving the restaurant, all the North Korean workers just waving hand in the outside. I can feel they are from very high-ranked the government inside Pyongyang. So I never told them, the waitress, I'm from North Korea. They thought I'm Korean Chinese. And I had a really good relationship because I was hiding my identity because I feel like at the moment I'm like in North Korea. But yeah, it was really fun. As I maybe mentioned in my book, over the years I had a really good relationship. And then when I visited one time, she said, "Oh, can I ask you one really private thing?" So what? And then she said, "I want to do boob surgery." She said, so can you tell me that's dangerous or it's okay, it's safe? So I said, the first thing I said, "Wow, do you have money?" That's really expensive. And then she said, "Don't worry, there's a VIP customer for their restaurants who was running those plastic surgery hospitals, so he promised her to..."
And in China, the best ones are all Korean anyway.
Yeah. But I don't know in the end she did the surgery actually or not, because I also said, "Oh, then your eye surgery you made in Pyongyang or in China?" And then she said, "Yeah, I did it in Pyongyang, but it didn't work very well," she said. But later what happened is Xu Jiahui, the Gonggu Zhengguo Bingguan, that's that restaurant was there, and then one girl, I met her, but I didn't really talk to her that much. She disappeared suddenly one day. I mean, the behind story was the South Korean trading company man, he lured her to escape to his home. I mean, they loved each other, I guess. So, I mean, that's why she escaped. But later she was caught because at the time Shanghai was cracked down because of that issue, and then she was caught, and then she was sent back to North Korea, and then she was killed in North Korea. It's a really well-known story, and that's why certain period at the time there's two restaurants at the time, Lungba and Shijiahui. Those restaurants closed completely, and then the workers all sent back into North Korea. That's why I didn't meet her, whether she did surgery or not. And then a few months later,
a whole load of new workers.
Yeah, new workers switched with that. Yeah.
Okay, there was a gentleman there. Yeah, let's try and move it around the room a bit. Sorry.
Thank you. Sorry, I just wanted to ask you about Kim Jong-un. We were fortunate enough to go to North Korea last summer. And one of the things you kind of learn out there when you speak to people is that, Sung is, is a father figure, and Il as well is a father figure. But Un wasn't actually spoken about in as much light as the other two. And I was wondering, is that a sort of, do the North Korean people still, believe in the father figure as much as they used to? Is it sort of maybe, I don't know, a sort of, coming together of people thinking actually maybe he isn't? I mean, I know a lot in the press is spoken about who actually is running the top of North Korea now. Is it sort of, the generals in charge, or is it fully? And I was just wondering if you could sort of enlighten on that bit.
Can you speak a little louder?
So Kim Il-sung, leader of the nation.
Yeah.
Kim Jong-il, son of Kim Il-sung. Now Kim Jong-un.
Yeah, 3 generations.
Yeah. The gentleman suggested, probably quite correctly, that people are perhaps not quite as amazed by Kim Jong-un as they were by Kim Jong-il, and that there probably still is a lot of fond memory for Kim Il-sung. But what do you think about that? How North Korean people's reaction and feelings for Kim Jong-un in this third leadership phase?
I mean, Kim Jong-un suddenly appeared one day on the media, and because when Kim Jong-il was appeared on the media in the past, somehow through the TV, they advertised a lot that he's Kim Il-sung's son. So people guessed maybe he could be the next leader of the North Korea. But about Kim Jong-un was a very sudden appearance. Suddenly 2000, he appeared in 2009 actually. My mom saw him on newspaper one time, and then she didn't know who is this young man. But even on the media never featured him, but she just guessed. It's the only person possible, maybe Kim Jong-il's son. But I think because of the outside the foreign media right now fleeing into North Korea after the famine, and the people's mind changing. In the past, people focus on more loyalty to the regime, but right now the loyalty is losing, and people more focusing on earning money through the either black market or markets. So, I mean, they know Kim Jong-un is faking right now. Even many of them realized during the Kim Jong-il period, which is really shocking. In the past, until I live in North Korea, even between wife and husband can't trust each other. During their living together, if the words, secretive words they shared together, after they divorced, maybe one person could tell to the government. It is happening, so the other person will be sent to prison camp. So in North Korea, it's a really common sense. Even between husband, wife can't trust each other. Only siblings and parents we can trust in North Korea. But it's changing. Very shocking things after way 2000 later. My parents had a very good relationship with my town, the very big official from the government. And then when she visited their house during that time with my brother, and then there was a TV, the Kim Jong-il appeared on a TV, and then what he said, he turned off the TV with the remote immediately. bullshit. He said in Korean like that. And then he said, this is, do you know it's all faking? You know, this is that he's doing all the performance. It's not real, you know. Do you know he's actually same as my age, something like that. So my mom said, actually she was shocked. How can he say that? And maybe my mom told to the government he was losing all the power. But by listening that, I mean, people's minds is changing. I mean, they're more, in the past that they couldn't trust each other, but right now they're more, I mean, by sharing secretive information, maybe they're building their own relationships. So it's a changing. So even during Kim Jong-il period, it started. So what can we expect during Kim Jong-un period? There's also, I'm surprised that people even calling him pig. It is really happening. Because I was having phone call with my aunt all the time, but recently it's really hard right now. But we had until the end of last year. But yeah, people calling him pretty severely, but not openly. But yeah, it's really changing a lot. The disrespect about the regime.
Got a gentleman here. Do you think also that people now have a lot more access to outside things? We hear about USB memory sticks going in that have, you know, lots and lots of films on, lots and lots of South Korean and Chinese magazines and things like that. That, you know, I mean, you got to see a lot of things from China and South Korea, but now many, many more people are seeing much, much more because it's become a lot easier to move things in through USB sticks and DVDs and things like that. I mean, and so people are much, you know, even from your generation, and certainly a generation before, that a generation now, there is a generation now which is larger and is not going to so easily believe that things are awful in South Korea and things are, you know,
Yeah.
there's just been a lot more access.
When the South-Korean drama or movies, or including American movies, flee into the border inside North Korea, it was kind of fascinated among the North Korean people because we never had a chance to reach any outside information. Like we learned South Koreans are always poor, they are slave of Americans, and then they are starving always. But that's why when North Korean people see those dramas, it's fascinating. All on the drama is they're handsome, beautiful, just amazing. So that's why at the time the North Korean government tried hard to prevent North Korean people to see those outside media by saying those videos are fake. It's made for North Korean people. It's for another propaganda. It's not real. So you shouldn't watch that. That was another propaganda in North Korea at the time. But people, many of them, they believed seriously. But also some of them, they're addicted to watching it. From beginning, they believed it's a fake, it's a propaganda, but the story was good, love story, because in North Korea, we don't really have that kind of story. Always what we hear every day the most was from the TV was dear little's name 100 times and all the propaganda words. But from the South Korean TV, everything is overwhelming for them. So, but they addicted, and then when they see more and more, they realize maybe this is not fake. Maybe this is real. Some of them, that's why they are leaving the country. That's why many of them actually defected because of the South Korean drama. But like my mom, all the generation, it's for them hard to believe. Maybe they really believed. About 2010, she arrived in South Korea, and then the very first thing what she did was she saw a lot of traffic congestions in Seoul, and then just wow, that was true. It was. I said, I didn't know. She didn't say any words. Just wow, it is true. So what do you mean? I said, and then she said, wow. I mean, I saw exactly this kind of scene on South Korean drama, but I thought it was, as North Korean government told us, I thought that was a faking. She thought all the South Koreans car gathered on one side to making those propaganda movie videos. But yeah, she saw everywhere there. So yeah.
I was with some North Koreans in Seoul, and it was their first trip to Seoul, and coming in from Incheon airport at night. Yeah. And they really believed, because they were from the North Korean Ministry of Finance, they really believed that everyone in North Korea had been told to switch their lights on.
What is it?
Switch the building lights on. They'd never seen buildings with all the lights on, and office buildings with the lights left on at night and all the neon signs, and they believed that everyone had been ordered to switch their lights on, because there's no way you could do that every night, surely, right? I mean, that would be impossible.
Like me, actually, when I was arrived in South Korea, even in China, I lived in China, but in China they don't have that much church. But what I saw in South Korea, the first thing, of course, I live in Shanghai. I saw the huge building. It's a nice city. It's quite developed than Seoul, actually. But what I saw the most was a Red Cross sign. A lot of sign I saw at night in South Korea, a lot. And I was thinking, wow, too many hospitals there. Only in North Korea we have the Red Cross is meant to hospital, but later I realized that that's church.
Hi, first of all, thank you for a very interesting conversation. And my question is, listening to your story from North Korea and actually reading a bit more about the topic, other people's stories, what strikes me the most is that how it seems that day-to-day life is very dark, grim, and sort of Orwellian. And I was just wondering, what are if there are little things that sort of ordinary people in North Korea are happy about day to day, and how kids are spending time, how families are spending time. Thank you.
What do you do for fun? It can't all be dark, right? It has to be some fun.
I mean, since we didn't know that we were completely objected, by the regime, so I thought that was the life as a human being. But for others, they have to always follow the regimes or the rally. We have tons of rallies, which North Korean people feel so sick to attend all the rallies. That's actually daily life, and then just go to company. The men, if don't go to company, they can be sent, not prison camp, but labor camp. They can be sent for 2 or 3 months. So yeah, we just lived under, what government let us do. Daily life. Daily life, we don't have any restaurant to enjoy, or we don't have a singing room, we don't have a bar, we don't have a supermarket at the time. So it's boring, and then we don't have a light at night. Usually, especially during the family. Even today, they don't have light. So what people are doing the most after eat dinner, they sleep earlier, like 7 o'clock. That's their daily life. But actually, pretty normal. Where human beings live in this world, a little bit all similar. They have happiness by own their way. They're spending time with family members. But only thing difference is we are severely censored by the government. We don't have that much freedom to choose. That's the only thing different. But the other thing is, I think, quite similar. Yeah.
But in Pyongyang, and so people do on holidays go to the park.
Yeah, it's
and they
Pyongyang
have
people feel
picnics and they
sick of
take the
that all the
families.
time.
They're bored of that now.
Yeah.
They always look very happy in the photos.
And they,
dancing. Bit of
in my
dancing.
city also we have that a lot, because that's why I practiced a lot after school, where all. Outside the country, even in South Korea, what I realized, the students after school go to the Hagwon academy for learning English or for learning math. But for us, what we did the most is gathering on the ground, school ground, and then we practiced the math game all the time. What I remember was, besides the winter period, we did the 3 seasons, practice many different games. That's why I learned everything, including card sections or dancing, even, It's just.
So you actually did the card thing, where you filmed the big picture, which is a very North Korean thing.
It was really, actually, torturing us, and we can't move there, and then because each person we have a role for that.
You can't just walk off and go to the
toilet. But I don't know what letter I hold myself. I can't see. So if one person missing there, means there's a big one hole. That's why even if you are sick, if you have to go there. There's no choice. And then if you wanted to pee, you can't leave the site. So some students really, they were peeing on their pants. It looks beautiful, the card section, right? But the behind story is really sad for those students.
Okay. We have a question over on this side. There's a lady here. I haven't seen anyone on this side. Sorry, I'm just trying to move it around.
So we wanted to ask if there's anything you miss, or if there's anything from North Korea that you would like
to see in the wider world?
Depends on the period. It's a change. Until I meet my family, I united my family in 2010 finally, but real uniting is 2011. But until then, what most bothered me was the very last minute. I mean, of course, I miss my hometown all the time. That's never changed. But the most bothered me was the very last minute when I was separating from my mom. Of course, my mom would not allow me to leave the country because we certainly didn't have economic hardships. And then at that time, some actually people started fleeing the country. But I asked one time to find out the truth, visiting the relatives in China, but she strongly rejected. So I know that will not happen. So one day I made a big decision. I will find out the truth, and then I will coming back soon. So when after school, I went home and I realized my mom cooked a huge dinner at the table. And I just feel like guilty. Oh my God, did my mom notice that I'm leaving today? No way she can realize that. So I asked my mom, how did you cook a lot today? It's not birthday or holiday. And then my mom said, no, I want to sometimes cook for you guys different food as mom. So she said it very normally. And I just ate a lot, and then I had to leave at the moment. So I said, Mom, I have to go. And then my mom said, where are you going? And I said, I will visit my friends. And then she said, then come back quickly before the dark, because in North Korea there's dangers as a young girl going outside at night. So she said, coming back quickly. So she even followed me until the main gate of the house. And I still feel the moment she was standing there watching me as a parent, as a mom, to worry her daughter if she's coming back late or earlier. So she's just waving me hand, so to come back quickly. But she would never guess that I will not come back. And I never knew also it would be the last minute in my life. I was guilty at the time. I really wanted to say to my mom, actually I'm leaving. But I can't say that. I thought maybe I will really come back in 1 week later. But living in China, when I realized I couldn't go back, that was the most moment it bothers me. I can't erase the moment in my life forever. My mom's eyes, face. But many years later, 2010, when I met my mom in face, everything changed. Her age became so old, yeah. But it was the most hard for me to bear inside the last minute. But again, right now, I'm happy leaving my family together while most defectors are separated from their family members forever. But still, all the family, by bringing my mom, I thought maybe I will be free. I will not have any guilty. But actually, I'm more hurt by bringing my mom right now because I have to suffer that my mom crying every day right now. She's missing her siblings back in North Korea. She has 8 siblings in North Korea. And they had a really good relationship together. But she's almost in panic that once she just think that she can't maybe meet them in her lifetime. So she's almost crying every day. So by seeing that, it's more hurting than I suffered in the past. It's better maybe I suffer myself by missing my mom's every time. But I don't want to see my mom is being hurt. But too late for me to change. And then later I found nobody can resolve this problem. Only unification can make it happen. Yeah, this is a tragedy as a North Korean defectors.
Your mother's quite remarkable as well, because being an older generation, she was brought up very much on anti-American imperialism and the devils from the United States, and yet when it's a long and convoluted and fascinating story of how you got her out of North Korea, but when she eventually gets to America, I'm always amazed by that generation, as to how quickly they take to being outside of somewhere like that. And you describe her, looking out across Chicago and sort of, quite impressed by it, but sort of not massively so. Eating food in an American diner, wow, it's very unlikely that a Korean mum is going to be very impressed with food in an American diner, is it? But sort of she's amazed by that, you know. There she is in America. And your mum, you know, of course, she was trading and dealing in things, but she still had that belief about the Americans.
Yeah.
And then to cap it all, as you mentioned in the book, you bring home an American boyfriend. I mean, a Yankee imperialist. You bring one home to meet her. Right? He's here, by the way. If you read the book, Brian takes on a fantastic role in the book. But his picture's not in here, so it was fascinating to meet him. But, you know, and she takes it all in her stride, right? I mean, that's quite remarkable, I think.
Actually, you know, my mom is she was the most brainwashed woman who lived in North Korea more than 50 years. But that's why when I introduced at the time he was my boyfriend, when I introduced him to my mom, she really treated him as an American bastard. Because, I mean...
And to be fair, you cut off the story, so we don't actually... He might be an American bastard, we don't know.
In North Korea, we didn't learn Americans as a human being. We have one word, it's connected, American bastards. It's one word, that's why as American bastards. But the very interesting was, actually we learned very nice things about the British are gentlemen. But I didn't know why we were taught British are gentlemen, because in our image, British gentleman has a big black hat and the cape and the long shoes, while we saw a lot of American bastards with huge nose and all with military uniforms. So I thought, you know, in America there's only military exists. There's no ordinary human being exist. So when I brought him to my mom, she said, she didn't say any words. Of course, she can't communicate in English, so I understood. But she was shocking, actually. I didn't really know that, but she said, seriously, in Korean, she said, oh my God, I must be lived too long in my life. So I said, what do you mean? And then she said, I can't imagine I can have a dinner with one American bastard in my house. At that time, I realized she's not joking. She was really seriously, she was talking like that. And then actually, I'm confessing you, but I didn't tell you many times at all. My mom was convincing me not dating with American bastards. Seriously, she said, you can find nice man in your life, you know, just don't dating with him. Yeah, she did many times. But right now, she accepted him as her son. She tried her best to accept it. And then right now, she said that whenever she took subway, she said, oh, I saw a lot of foreigners in Seoul, and they are not handsome as Brian have.
Poor Brian, poor Brian.
But...
And they told you all Englishmen are gentlemen, so that just shows you that it's just lies, lies, lies in North Korea, isn't it? It never stops.
But I mean, British are gentlemen. I saw there's another club. I mean, while in South Korea we have only nightclub, but I saw here a lot of social clubs, which is surprising to me. But I saw a lot of gentlemen. I mean, not personally, I don't know, but in fashion, it was a gentleman to me. Yeah.
Don't worry, none of them are as good looking as Brian. Now we've got time for one last question. I think this lady over here has had her hand up for quite a while.
Thank you. Hopefully this will be a good closing question. Pressure. So you talked a lot about how the modern people in North Korea don't respect the new leader as much, or how South Korea doesn't really want North Korean people. So what kind of future do you see in North Korea? What needs to change in order for the whole regime to fall apart? Or, I mean, what do you see happening in North Korea in the next 15 years?
This is a really, easy question, but it's a common question, but hard to make an answer. I mean, I wish I can be a fortune teller, but I asked actually fortune tellers, what do you see about the? I asked, what do you see about the future unification? And I really, whenever visit fortune teller, I ask the same thing, but some fortune tellers just, I don't know. Yeah. I'm sure they don't know, but one fortune teller.
You'd have to be a very brave fortune teller to tell Kim Jong-un that the people are going to rise up and you're going to be shot and dead in 6 years. I mean, that would be a very brave fortune teller.
But one fortune teller said, somehow I see in 20 years later, he was man, the fortune teller, in 40, but he said, I'm wearing Korean traditional hanbok, the dress, I'm visiting, I'm crossing the 30 years parallel line, he said. So maybe there will be unification. So that means, in 20 years later, maybe we can have a unification. I was just joking, but anyway, I'm not taking that seriously because it's hard to guess. But certainly, I think the regime right now is an unstable situation because he's killing massively all the officials. But I just hope the regime changes. By regime changes, before regime changes, I can't expect everything. The situations, the major situations didn't change. Improvement, human rights, or access to information, outside information, everything didn't change right now in North Korea. So I believe there's another regime will change.
You also hint at a problem in here, which is if it's just simply a kind of German solution with a wall coming down or the DMZ going, then that may not necessarily be very good for North Korean people. I mean, they are in a weaker position. They could become the cheap workers, the slaves, if you like, the people that are really exploited in South Korea.
Yeah.
It's because of the great difference between the two.
Gap between.
It's not as simple as just saying, Kim Jong-un is gone, the DMZ is gone, everyone can go everywhere. It's much more complicated.
It will be chaos. Yeah. And but we have to, encounter that. We can't avoid that problem. So I think after unification, the first generation, that's our responsibility to overcome the problem. But I believe from next generation, we will have less problem.
A South Korean politician once said to me that the first thing to do if the regime collapsed in North Korea would be to parachute 300,000 psychiatrists into North Korea because you'd have to kind of deal with
because North Koreans are the most brainwashed human being in the world, so that will be a really serious problem. Yeah, it's serious.
Okay. Well, look, thank you very much for coming out in this rather hot room and everything. I can't really stress enough how this is a really extraordinary memoir and does very different things to some of the other memoirs that have come out in the last few years. And it's very interesting. And as you can tell, Hyeonseo can speak for herself extremely well in this book. It is a really great read. It's a thriller, particularly when you're kind of trying to get down to South Korea. It really is a page turner. And there are copies on sale. And you are now good capitalists, so you will sell some and you will sign some, right? We don't have to have a ration card to get them or anything. You can just get them. And the books will be on sale here, so we'll be signing. But please, she only got here a couple of days ago, so there's probably a bit of jet lag as well. Please thank Hyeonseo very, very much for talking so honestly to me.